Hello learners, myself Simran from Team CloudyML, and today I welcome you all to our YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to see a Python interview question, and this question was asked by the company Microsoft. So get ready for seeing this question and getting to learn something new. So let's begin. First, before beginning, let's practice a small Python question, which is a quiz. Okay, so what will be the output of the following code snippet? You've been given a code snippet which is of hardly 4 to 5 lines, and you need to find out that what will be the output of this code snippet. You've been given a list, a sum as 0, and for element in A, you have to increment the sum and finally print the sum. So if you know the answer for this question, to put it down in the comment section. But if you want to know the solution, please watch the entire video. I will be discussing the solution to this question at the end of the video. Okay, so let's move ahead with the main question, which is the main Python interview question asked by the company Microsoft. So, given a list of integers and an integer target, return indices of the two numbers such that they add up to the target. So let's understand this question with the help of an example. So this is the example input when you have a nums, which is a list of 4 elements 1, 5, 2 and 7. Along with it, you have a target number which is 12, which is an integer. So what you have to return is you have to return the indices of the numbers from this list, by which adding the two numbers give you the target. So output is 1, 2. These are the indices. So if you see the index 1 here is 5 and the index 2 is 7. So when you add 5 and 7, obviously you get the number 12. Okay, so this is how you have to solve this question, wherein you have to print out the indices, which when adding you get the target number. Okay, so let's see how to solve this question using two different approaches. So before coding, let's first understand the logic that we will be using to solve the first question. So we will be deriving two different logic, and for each of the logic we will be coding the question. Okay, so let's first write out the input list, which is the nums. So the nums that is given, we will be simply using the sample input only, 1, 5, 7 and 2, and the target which is given is 12. Okay, so now if you see that you have to add each number with every other number and check whether the target is 12. This can be the approach 1, that you need to add every number with every other number and find out whether its sum is 12. Correct? So in this case, what you will do is you will use two for loops. One for iterating I, next for iterating j. Then you will add, or you can also subtract the number for ease. Like you can find out the target minus suppose the number j and find out if this equation matches. If it matches, then you can return I comma j. Correct? This can be the logic behind the first approach, and this can be also done as j equals to target minus I. Why? Because j is in the loop, correct? So you will check whether each j is the difference between target and the current I. Okay, so this is the logic for the first approach. Now let's code it first and then check whether our logic is giving us the correct output or not. So create a function using the def keyword. Give the function name as toSum. Okay, and we will be passing into this the number which is the list and the target value. Okay. Next, what we will do is, as we discussed, we will iterate through the length because we want to calculate the indices. Correct? We have to display the index, so we will simply iterate through the length, and the second iteration will be also through the length. But in this case, we will start with I plus 1, comma, len of numbers. Why I plus 1? Because we know that we will not consider the I. Okay, once we start the for loop, the first for loop, we will have some number I. Then we will start with the next value of I. Okay, so we will check the values after I. Similarly, when I will be the second number, we will check all the values after I. This all values will be j, for which we will run the for loop. Okay, so I plus 1, comma, length of numbers. Now, if nums of j is equal to target minus nums of I, which means if the difference between two numbers, okay, between the target and the number, the first number is equal to the second number, then what we will do, we will simply return the value of I and j. I, comma, j. Okay, so this is the function that we have created. Let's run this, and now let's check the output first. So print to sum, and let's pass our list first. So 1, 5, 7, and 2, and the target, which is 12. Now run this, and let's check the output. So you see we have got the correct output, which is 1 and 2, for which 5 and 7 add up to give 12. So our logic was correct. So let's implement this code step by step so that you better understand the logic. So first, when we begin the code, we have the first for loop, which is for I in range of length of elements. So let's write down the list again so that we understand it better. 1, 5, 7, and 2. And the target is 12. Now, when we first begin the iteration, this is the first iteration for which I, the value of I, is 0. The length of numbers here is 4, correct? So for 4, we will begin with 0. I is 0. Next, we have the first sub iteration for which j will, the second for loop, j will begin from I plus 1 up till length of numbers. So here I plus 1 will be 1. So it will begin with 1. The first value of j will be 1. It will check whether the nums of j equal to target minus nums of I. So here nums of j, which will be the second element. So 5 is equals to target minus nums of I, which is 1. So this is 13. Sorry, 11. But 5 is not equal to 11. Okay. So here no action will be taken. Now the value of j will be incremented to 2. This will be done up till 4 because the maximum value is 4, correct? So now it will check nums of j will be 7, 12 minus 1, which is 11. So even this is not satisfied. Next, the value of j will be 3. Now, again, this will be 7 equals to 12 minus 1. Sorry, 2 equals to 12 minus 1, which is also not correct. Okay, so this iteration will come to an end. Next, the value of I will be incremented to 1. Again, the value of j now will begin from 2 to 4. Why? Because now I plus 1 will be 2 and length of elements is 4. So now the value of j will be 2. The nums of 2 is 7. We will check whether it is target minus nums of I. Nums of I will be nums of 1, which is 5. So if you see 7 is equal to 7. So in this case, the condition is satisfied. It will return I minus j, which is 1, 2. Okay, so we have got the value 1, 2. One value 1, 2. Once we return, the iteration breaks. Whenever return is found out, the iteration breaks in this case. Okay, so that is why we will return the value 1, 2, which is our final output. So for this approach, the complexity, the time complexity is O(n) square. Why? Because we are running two for loops along the length of the numbers, which means the time complexity will be n square because two for loops are present, correct? And that too for the entire length. So that is why the time complexity is O(n) square. So this time complexity is very high if you observe. So what we will do is we will try to reduce the time complexity in this second approach. So now let's look at the logic of the second approach. In this approach, what we are going to do is we will try to reduce the time complexity. So if you see over here that we can avoid this second for loop, which is for the j, and we can try something wherein we can simply store the value somewhere and check whether the value is present or not. So what we will be doing is, what we can do first, we can iterate simply the first for loop, okay? We will iterate through the length, which is I, and then we will find out the difference between target and the nums of I. And then what we can do is, if the target or if the difference is already present in a certain data type, suppose we create a dictionary in this case. Okay. So if the difference is already present in the dictionary, then we can return that difference and the corresponding I, or else we can, if it is not present, then we can simply insert it over there. Which means what I'm trying to say is that suppose we create a dictionary. Suppose the name of the dictionary is D. Okay, and what we do, we first run a for loop I along the length, okay, of the list, and then we calculate the difference between the target and the nums of I. Okay, nums of I. Then what we will do, if this difference is already present in D, then if difference in D, then what we can do is we can simply return this value. Okay, we can return the I and this difference which is present in D. But if it is not present, then we can insert the value. Okay, so what we will do, D dot append or something. If this is dictionary, then we will simply add the nums of I as the value of this I. Correct. So let's see how we can code this approach. Using this approach, we will simply reduce the time complexity. So for this, create another function which is def to sum2, and this function will also take the list and the target as output. Okay, as the parameters. Now let's create a dictionary which is hash map. In this dictionary, we will be storing the difference values. So for I, in range length of numbers, what we will do, we will find out the difference. So let's find out the diff is equals to target minus nums of I. Okay. So after finding out this diff, what we will do, we will check whether this diff is present in the hash map or not. So if diff in hash map, you can simply return what will return I, comma, the value that has been stored in the hash map for the given diff. And if it is not present in the hash map, then you can add this value. For adding this value, we will simply hash map, and by using this dictionary concept, this is the way to add a value in dictionary. Okay, so nums of I, in place of nums of I as the key, you will give the value as I. So this is the key value. The nums of I is the key value, and this is the value that you give to the particular key. Now run this. Okay, so our definition is created. Let's check using by calling the definition, pass the list value, which is 157, 2, and the target, which is 12. Run this. So you see the value 2, 1, which is the correct value. Only the sequence has been changed, but that doesn't cause much. So yes, the output is correct. Now let's implement this code step by step so that you understand it properly. Let's see how to do that. So first, I'll simply write down the list that we have, that is the nums. Our nums is 1, 5, 7 and 2, and the target, as we know, is 12. Correct? So first, when we start with the program, the hash map is created. So create a hash map. Simply for this, we give the name as h. Okay? What next we have is we iterate through the length of numbers. So start with the iteration. The first iteration will be I is equals to 0 because the length is 4. So it will start from 0 up till 3. Correct? So the first value of I will be 0. Next, what it will do? It will calculate the difference, which will be target minus nums of I. So here diff, let's give it as D. Target is 12. Nums of I will be 1. So here D will be 11. Correct? Now check whether D is present in the hash map or not. So for now the hash map is empty. Nothing is present in the hash map. So what you will do, you will append this value to the hash map. How you will do it? See, hash map nums of I is equals to I. So here nums of I is the key. So nums of I in our case is 1 and the corresponding value of I will be 0. Correct? What you have to do, you have to apply the nums of I as the key. So the nums of I in our case is 1 and the key, which is the I value, is 0 for this iteration. So you will give the value as I as 0. Okay, so this is our new hash map or the dictionary. Now we will perform the second iteration wherein the I value will be incremented to 1. Similarly, you will find out the difference 12 minus 5, which is 7. You will check whether 7 is present in this hash map. It is not present, right? The value 7 is not present. So what you will do, you will append it. How you will append? The 7 value, this is the original value, and the next value will be nums of I. Your nums of I is 5, correct? And the I value will be 1. Okay? This is the updated hash. Next, the third iteration, I will be 2. Again, you will calculate the difference, 12 minus 7, which is 5. Okay, so now you will check whether 5 is present in the hash or not. And you see 5 is present, correct? So what you will do, now 5 is present. So if 5 is present in hash map, or if a difference is present in the hash map, the difference in our case is 5. So 5 is present in the hash map. So what you will do, you will return I, hash map of difference. Here I is 2 and the hash map of difference, which means the hash map of 5 is 1. Correct? The value for the key 5. You have to find out the value of the key 5. So the value is 1. So you will simply return 2, 1, which is I, which is 2, 1, which is the value for the key of difference. Here the difference was 5. So that is how you return the value 2, 1 in this case. Okay. So this was the implementation of the code of the second approach. So in this approach, if you notice, the time complexity will be ON. Why? Because we have only one for loop and second is if loop. The time complexity of if loop is O1 because we only check once whether difference is present in hash map. So that is why the time complexity of the if is 1 and the for loop is n because we iterate through the length. That is why the total time complexity becomes ON, which is a linear time complexity. So this approach is found out to be better because it is more optimal as present as compared to the first approach. Because in the first approach we had the time complexity as ON square, and in the second approach, we have the time complexity as ON. So that is why we will be selecting the second approach because it has a better time complexity. Okay. So I hope you've understood both the approaches. Practice it on your own. If you have any doubt, you can ask it in the comment section. You can also give your own solutions to this problem as well. So before ending with the video, we had asked a question based on Python. What will be the output of the following code? So if you solve it properly, you have to simply find out the sum of all the elements, correct? Because see here, you have to find out the sum of all elements in the list A. If you calculate the sum, which is 3 plus 3, 6 plus 4, 10 plus 5, 15. So simply the value will be option A, which is 15. So 15 is the correct answer to this question. I hope you've understood the interview question and keep practicing Python. If you have any doubts, you can ask to ask us in the comment section. Do like the video, share it and subscribe. Do like the video, share it and subscribe the channel for more such videos. Thank you.